What's up, everybody? This is Devin White, linebacker for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. You're listening to the LCC Network. Go Bucks.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Commissioner's Clubhouse on the LCC Network for week 2 of the regular season, part 1. Obviously, we mentioned this before, but this is going to be a 2-part series going forward every week, 2 episodes a week, shorter episodes. I think everyone is going to like this a little bit more. Like always, I've got Jameson with me today, but unfortunately for this episode, we don't have Isaac. And no, he didn't get swept away by the hurricane. He had to go rescue some dogs, apparently. So that's kind of where we are right now with that.
It's the whole story. It's a whole story. So
but
Isaac
like old
won't be joining.
times, it's
Like
the two
old
of us.
times. Yeah, like last season when we were on the episodes together. Isaac won't be on this episode, but he will be on the next episode that we're also recording tonight. He'll be right back. All right, guys, really quickly, we just want to run through a few LCC headlines and then maybe touch on a couple of the stardom sit-ems for the week for the first episode, and then we'll kind of jump into game previews for the second episode. So, all right, Pat, you ready to just kind of jump straight in? I don't know if I have a sound drop for this. So we'll just play a random one here. I'm just gonna press a button.
If you want to crown them, then crown their.
That's a good. That's a good.
It
one.
makes sense for some of these we're about to talk about here in a second.
It does. So a couple really quick 3 LCC headlines we put together. Cody trampled in a rematch of the Little Critter Bowl. Billy got the best of him, 253 to 207. But honestly, both teams kind of underwhelmed, even though Billy got the victory. We did predict that on the last show, assuming that Zeke played, but I don't think we were expecting the point total that we got out of this game.
No, that was probably, I could be wrong about this, and correct me, Cody, if I'm wrong, but I'm going on a limb here and say this is probably the lowest points Cody scored since 2015, maybe 2016.
I would suspect that's right. I would suspect that's right. And really, I think
it's been 2 or 3 years.
It has been, yeah. And I think it's a fluke. I mean, we talked about this earlier. The score is a fluke, not necessarily Billy winning, but I mean, Cody's not going to score that low again. So don't expect that moving forward. Michael lays the wood to BP in the 98-point victory. This is a game no one was excited to see, but Michael just beat the brakes off of him. He only had 2 players finish below 27 points. Billy Powell had 7 of his 10 starters finish with 19 points or less in week 1. Which is funny because he's the only guy not making trades right now, it seems like. So so we'll see what happens going the next week. Were you shocked by that, Pat?
Yeah, I was shocked by the blowout. He actually, I think he messaged me, unless it was someone else. I think he messaged me earlier today. He was trying to do a trade. I guess it probably didn't happen. But no, I was shocked. I was totally shocked. I mean, I think we both picked Michael to win this, but I don't think any of us thought it would be that bad. And Michael did exceptionally well. Like, nothing against him. He almost hit 300 points.
Yeah.
But it was poor BP, man, who couldn't even break 200. That's rough. That is a tough loss to swallow, especially in your first game in the league.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And then finally here, Isaac single game record. Sorry, not season, but falls just short, led by an 80-point effort by Corey Littleton, but then fell short with J.N. Brown to try to beat Billy's record of 398. He came very close. Very, very close. I thought that was exciting because we talked about that a few weeks ago. Remember?
Wasn't that also in like a top 10 episode too? Didn't we bring? Maybe we didn't. Maybe it wasn't that game.
I'm sure we've talked about it multiple times. Yeah.
Who knows?
So he got very, very close.
Yeah, but regardless, Corey Littleton tied for the 11th most points scored by an individual player in league history. Right now, number 1 is still held by Le'Veon Bell from week 14 of the 2016 playoffs.
In the Bills game?
I remember very well because that was in the semifinals where I got beat down by my wife, Maria. Yeah. So Bell still has it. After all these years, he's still the only one who has 95 points.
He looked great this past weekend. All right, man. Well, that's it. I wanted to run through those headlines. We'll jump into the start sit-ems here. some offensive, defensive players. We're trying to make it players that aren't obvious, so that way you can kind of look through these guys if they're on your bench. Hopefully you're not at that point yet, but there were a lot of injuries in week 1, so we'll kind of run through some of these guys, and you guys can kind of consider this when you're setting your lineups this week. All right, Pat, we'll jump in here. Offense stardoms. You got Cam Newton here.
Yeah, and I know we talked about not doing obvious players, but I made an argument with you earlier today. If you're a Cam Newton owner right now and he's on your roster and you have a backup quarterback, I find it hard to imagine that in these guys' heads, it's not crossing their mind, is this the end for Cam Newton's greatness and fantasy? Is this going to be a new norm where we're seeing him score like QB2 type numbers week in, week out, and not really scrambling the football? But what I'm here to say is that right there is just uncommon for Cam Newton. And I think you're going to see that this entire year. That's probably going to be his lowest scoring game of the year. LA has a great defense. Tampa Bay, not so much. And I think that Tampa Bay could end up putting a good bit of points in Carolina's defense, even though they played well against LA last week. I think Cam Newton's going to be forced to make some plays Thursday night. And I think if you got him, you got to start him. Without a doubt, he has to be your QB1.
I agree. I agree. I mean, unless I'm starting Lamar Jackson in our other league over Cam Newton, but it's not because I'm tilting on Cam Newton as much, more that I just love Lamar Jackson. But yeah, I mean, unless you've got a guy like that, you're probably got Cam Newton in your lineup, and you should. I've got Derek Carr here. They're playing the Chiefs this week. Derek Carr looks really good this past week. And Gardner Minshew, I'm sure no one that's listening to this has heard of Gardner Minshew, rookie quarterback for the Jaguars, put up 38 fantasy points off the bench, not expecting to play, 38 fantasy points against the Chiefs defense. So it doesn't look like they're doing much better. And if this turns into a blowout, or the Raiders are catching up, I think Derek Carr is a solid fantasy option this week. Again, don't go out of your way to play him. But if you're looking for a guy, maybe you're kind of concerned about some matchups or whatnot, I think he's someone that you could consider. So, you said woof. You agree with that, I imagine.
Well, I was just saying, like, I've got Dak Prescott. Now I got to decide, do I start Dak Prescott or Derek Carr? I don't know.
You still got to go Dak. You still got to go Dak Prescott.
That was a joke. I'm definitely going Dak.
Yeah. Fun fact. Gardner Minshew was the 16th quarterback in fantasy in our league this past week. 16. Above guys like Josh Allen, Derek Carr, Russell Wilson, Jared Goff, ahead of all those guys. Aaron Rodgers, Big Ben, Baker Mayfield, Kirk Cousins, Cam Newton, Mitch Trubisky. He was ahead of all of these guys in week 1. So Derek Carr can have a good game. Some running backs here. Austin Eckler, no surprise, destroyed it this past week without Melvin Gordon. Chargers offense looks explosive. If you don't have him in your lineup, I think he should be there. Right, Pat?
For sure. I was surprised my dad didn't start him against me last week. I thought for sure he'd be in his lineup, and he proved why he should be. I mean, I think going forward, Austin Eckler may be a guy that he's in everyone's lineup every single week, and especially if you're in a PPR league, this man is kind of like a poor man's Christian McCaffrey in a way.
Yeah, until Melvin Gordon comes back, he should be in your lineup. He's an RB1 upside player. 2 other running backs we mentioned: Carlos Hyde, Matt Breida. Tevin Coleman's gone with a sprained ankle. It looks like for at least a few weeks. And the Niners play the Bengals. I think that's a positive game script. Matt Breida can catch passes as well. And Carlos Hyde, he averaged over 8 yards a carry. Last week against a very tough Saints defense. They're going up against Jacksonville, where the game script's probably going to be in their favor. So look for Carlos Hyde to get a lot of work. If you're tilting or you need a running back, I would consider those guys as a flex option. So, all right, receivers: Chris Godwin, Robert Woods. Do you want to talk about any of these guys, Pat, or you just want to kind of roll through them real quick?
Yeah, let's. Chris Godwin. I know if Isaac was here, he'd really love to talk about Chris Godwin tonight. But he's not. So I'll talk about him a little bit. I mean, you've got Carolina, who put up 27 against the LA Rams, despite Carolina making multiple turnovers Why couldn't they do the same thing Thursday night against Tampa Bay at home?
Yeah.
Chris Godwin is going to be forced to make plays. I'm guessing Mike Evans is more than likely going to be fully healthy by the time kickoff happens, but
Yes.
I
Yep.
expect Chris Godwin to be a big part of that game plan regardless.
Yeah, exactly. Even though Michael Evans wasn't healthy, Chris Godwin did lead the team in targets. I expect him to still have a very, very strong role. And again, not someone you'd want to start over a Sammy Watkins or anyone like that. But there were some injuries last week. You know, Devin Funchess is gone. Tyreek Hill's gone. Mike Williams got hurt. Mike Evans is coming off the flu. I mean, if you are one of these teams, and you need to look to Chris Godwin, don't hesitate to do it. And then Robert Woods, he led the Rams in targets last week, led them in fantasy points last week, and now they're playing the Saints in a rematch of the NFC Championship game. I expect a big game from almost all of the Rams receiving options. In fact, the entire offense. I expect a big game from them and from the Saints. So if you got him, fire him up. A couple of defensive players here, Pat. You want to talk about Calais Campbell and why you've got him as a starter?
Yeah, I'd love to talk about me some Calais Campbell's and soup. My man, I've got him in the other league. I started him last week against the Chiefs, and if anyone else started against the Chiefs, man, did you regret that, because that was a pretty disappointing week overall.
You don't start players against Pat Mahomes. You don't start linemen against Pat Mahomes.
You just don't do it. I was a little ballsy there. But anyways, they're playing in Houston, the same place where the Saints put a beat down on Deshaun Watson. At least their front seven did, racking up 6 sacks. So my question is, man, why can't the Jags do it? They've got just as good of a defense, or maybe not just as good a defense as Saints, because Saints actually have an offense to complement it. But I mean, Calais Campbell, man, is just as good as any defensive lineman on their squad. They also have some other guys that the Texans offensive line is going to have to look at possibly double teaming. I think Calais could easily have, a 20+ point game this week. He should be a no-brainer in most people's lineups.
Yeah, I agree with that wholeheartedly. Deshaun Watson was the most sacked quarterback last season. We thought it was going to change. It doesn't look like it's going to change. And so he's running for his life back there. I expect a big game from Calais Campbell. Danielle Hunter, I've got him as a starter this week for the same exact reason. Aaron Rodgers was sacked at least 5 times last week, maybe more. And the Minnesota Vikings defense is, I think, it's pretty, I mean, maybe not as good as the Bears, but it's a pretty good defense. So I expect a lot from them. Danielle Hunter had 28 fantasy points last week. I don't see why he can't achieve that and more in week 2 against the Green Bay Packers and Aaron Rodgers. So moving on to linebackers here, Pat. We've only got one. I know you want to talk about him, Christian Kirksey. What are your thoughts on him?
Man, we talked about him in the offseason. I know the Browns are obviously running that 4-2-5 defense, even almost like a hybrid defense in a way at sometimes. But Christian Kirksey is playing against Le'Veon Bell and the Jets this week. And I know some people may not think very highly of the Jets offense still, and the fact that, because that is Kirksey, is Schobert going to be able to rack up the points that you want from them? I'm telling you, that's going to happen. When you're playing against Le'Veon Bell, your linebackers are forced to come in there and play in the box, even play the perimeter sometimes when needed to help stop that passing game that he also plays a part of. I'm telling you, Christian Kirksey has speed over Joe Schobert. He is going to more than likely probably be the guy that's shadowing Bell in a lot of formations, depending on what the Jets are running. I really like what we could see out of Christian Kirksey this week. Sure, you could call it kind of a gamble, but again, I think he's probably going to get you around 30 points by the end of it.
Cool. Yeah, that'd be great. 22 last week. I'm sure everyone's expecting a bounce back from Christian Kirksey. You've also got Minkah Fitzpatrick here. I think I understand the reason why, but just run it through pretty quickly why you like Minkah this week.
Yeah, Minkah Fitzpatrick racked up over 30 points last week, and I know Jade was super happy about that performance. Well, now he's going against really a better passing attack with the New England Patriots, regardless if they use Antonio Brown, and regardless if Antonio Brown did it or not. Yeah. But Minkah Fitzpatrick is going to rack up tackles. He's going to be forced to make tackles. I mean, if he's not, then the Dolphins are getting even more gashed than we thought they could possibly get gashed by the New England Patriots in Miami. I'm telling you, man, it's Minkah Fitzpatrick. Sure, He's going to make some stupid plays, but at the same time, naturally, just by default, he's going to be making some tackles out there and stuff, and he should get you, a good baseline 28 plus points, probably more like 30 plus points this week.
The next two, so they played against the Ravens last week, who were the number 3 passing offense in the league, and he had 31 points. They play the Patriots this week, which is 5. So he'll be very active in the secondary, like you alluded to. The week after that, they played Dallas, who currently leads the league in passing yardage with Dak Prescott. Then the Chargers, then the bye week, and then the Washington Redskins, who are currently 4th. So, I'm assuming if a team passing the ball against Miami is what makes him relevant, he could see a few weeks of relevance as we head towards the middle of the season. Pretty good schedule for him, assuming that's the reason he's successful. So I actually like that pick. I'm not a huge Minkah Fitzpatrick fan. I'm not high on him, generally speaking, but I actually like that as someone to consider starting in your secondary. I've got Von Bell here as someone to consider looking at. Again, the Saints play the Rams. I expect a shootout. I expect a lot of points. I expect very busy secondary. And Von Bell had 30 points last week. So against a Texans offense that looked very, very similar to what I expect the Rams to look like this week. So again, if you got someone like Von Bell, don't hesitate to start him up. So all right, Pat, any final thoughts on any of those guys before we move over to some of the sit-ems guys that we're not really confident about this week?
No, let's keep it going.
Okay, cool. Well, some of the sit-em guys, some of this might feel like an overreaction just because we've only had 1 week, but I feel like sometimes you see some of these things and how they play out. I want to give it more time before I'm confident like starting a player up. You know what I mean? After I see a really poor performance. And so we'll talk about some of these players here. Baker Mayfield's in here. We saw a great opening drive, and then he just collapsed against the Titans. I don't know how much of that is the Baker or Freddie Kitchens or the Titans defense. I really have no clue. I mean, what do you kind of gather from this situation?
I think the Browns as a whole just they went in there expecting to dominate the Titans like a lot of people thought, including myself. But Baker Mayfield, he didn't look good, man. He got 23 points last week. Very disappointing when a lot of fantasy analysts out there were claiming that he's a legitimate QB1. I mean, how many times did Drew Brees get you 23 points? How many times does Cam Newton? I mean, other than this past week,
not a good
20.
one.
Yeah, not a good one. Too soon. But I mean, listen, he was 25 of 38. Sure, he put up 285 passing yards, which is pretty decent. But he went 1 touchdown and 3 picks. That's not something I'm looking for in an actual QB1. In our format, what is it? It's like 3 points a pick. Am I remembering that correctly, or is it 2?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's 3.
I mean, yes, 9 points he just last year. I mean, that is a substantial margin. I mean, we're talking the difference between like 32 and now 23.
Oh, yeah.
That's the difference there. That does worry me because the Jets have a better defense than the Titans.
Yeah, I think so too. And not only losing the 9 points, but losing what you could have gotten had those drives not ended, right? Like those 3 potential touchdowns you lost. I mean, we're talking 20-point swing from the 3 interceptions that ended drives. I mean, he could have finished, with 50 points had those things not happened. So you're right. I don't know what to make of it yet. So if I have Baker, I'm probably trying to look at my backup quarterback, depending on who it is. For this
Real
week.
Quick, it doesn't get any easier from here. He's got the Jets in New York this week. Then he's got the LA Rams. Then he's got the Ravens. Then he's got the 49ers. Then the Seahawks. Then then the Patriots. Then the Broncos. Then the Bills. And it doesn't get easy until week 11 and the Steelers. So I guess if you're patient enough, him being your backup, it makes sense. But if he's your starter, you may want to look in the waiver wire or maybe trade for a cheap quarterback. I'm not saying you need to swing for the fences here, but again, it's a tough schedule from here on out. The Titans should have been one of his better weeks of the season, yet we saw probably one of his worst.
Yep. I agree. What about Leonard Fournette, running back that you have on your sit-em list this week?
Yeah, I mean, the Jags, they're going to be behind. I mean, we know this is going to happen. And just like we've talked about Marlon Mack in the past, getting games scripted out, and that was one of our fears going into the regular season. That's a very similar fear with Leonard Fournette, especially now that they're playing with a backup quarterback, and they're going against the Texans' high-powered offense. That doesn't make it any better. They're going to be forced to score points. They're going to have to be forced to throw the football at some point. And we know Leonard Fournette isn't the greatest pass catcher in the backfield. And it's just, I don't know, man. I don't like that for this week. This doesn't seem like the best time to be starting Leonard. But I will say this: if he does produce this week, he may be a legitimate week in, week out RB1. No doubt about it. If he's able to overcome this adversity in week 2,
Yep.
man, I have a lot of hopes for him this season.
And so speaking of that, you also have D.D. Westbrook on here for some of the same reasons. Rookie quarterback, not sure how you're gonna have to, how you're gonna go against this Texans defense. So I just wanted to mention that too. Kind of throw him in there with Leonard Fournette, the Jacksonville Jaguars offense. So I've got Sony Michel, Phillip Lindsay. Sony Michel, if you watch that Steelers game, was non-existent. He wasn't even on the field. I think he maybe had 5 carries. He was just not there. And I think until I see more of him, he is off I am not starting him. He's on my bench because James White looked great and got every catch. And then Rex Burkhead got a lot of the carries, and he looked fantastic. So, I mean, Sony Michel for me right now is on the bench till I see more. Phillip Lindsay, 17 fantasy points last week in our league. Not a whole lot. Only had 60 yards or so on 13 or 14 carries. So he was somewhat productive when he was there, but they're playing the Bears defense this week, who saw Aaron Jones get stifled last week. This could be playing from behind. I don't trust Phillip Lindsay heading into week 2. So, and then real quickly before we go to defense, basically all of the Cardinals wide receivers this week against the Ravens defense. I'm sorry, like Larry Fitz looked great. I do not trust him against the Ravens defense. I don't trust. Kyler Murray may be productive because he can utilize his legs and David Johnson, but I'm staying away from all the Cardinals wide receivers this season or this week 2. So, all right, real quickly we'll wrap it up. Since we got just a couple defensive players here. Aaron Donald made our list. Pat, why did Aaron Donald make the list?
Well, for one, he's playing the Saints, who historically don't give up a lot of sacks. I mean, Drew Brees has a very quick release, good awareness. I don't know if Aaron Donald can really do much for you this week, considering he got you 5 points against the Panthers offensive line, who I've been claiming for the past 2 years is one of the weakest probably in the NFL. But somehow we were able to hold up pretty well, in my opinion, against one of the best front sevens in the league. So that does worry me. I mean, I'm not saying nothing against Aaron Donald. I just don't know if this is the week you probably want him in your lineup if you got better options.
Yeah, if there's better options. Exactly. And 2 final players here. Jalen Smith. We didn't see a lot from him against the Giants because the Giants were passing the ball a lot. I think he's a better fantasy player against the run. And the Dallas Cowboys are playing Washington. So, I mean, what do we expect? We expect Washington to have to throw the ball a lot. I mean, he only had 20 points last week, and I would expect something along those lines. If you don't have to, you might want to look for other options to see if you can play someone over him. Like, Patrick, quick question for you. Anthony Hitchens or Jalen Smith?
I'll take Anthony Hitchens. I think it's probably a safer bet.
Roquan Smith or Jalen Smith?
Oh, man. Roquan Smith, after last week, I don't know. I guess maybe give me Roquan. I mean, he could get a pick with them getting the pressure on the quarterback like they did last week.
Okay.
I'll take Roquan.
Okay. Just wanted to kind of see where you were with him because that's the kind of tier I think I have Jalen Smith in. And I just wanted to see kind of where you were. Up until week 1, I would have started Jalen Smith above both of those guys. Now I think I'm kind of having him just a little bit lower heading into week 2. And then finally, Eric Weddle. He's on concussion protocol. We don't know what's going to happen. It looked pretty rough, the hit that he got. Even if he plays, I would not feel comfortable putting him in my lineup. Taylor Rapp looked fantastic coming in and only playing 30% of snaps and still doing pretty well. So if you do have Eric Weddle, I would at least hold off another week or 2, even if he's cleared. without playing him against the Saints. See if you can plug somebody else in there. So, all right, Pat. Any final thoughts, man? That's it. We're through the episode.
Yeah, that was probably record time for us.
Yeah.
Breathing, you know.
Yeah, it was. It
Used
was.
to doing like an hour.
Yeah. Well, it's a
fraction
new
of time.
format. I'm excited to roll it out. Hopefully you guys like it, and we'll actually be recording the other episode right now, and then releasing it right before the season. Or I keep saying the seasons. I'm not used to football being here. You know, we'll release it before Sunday, before week 2, with all the game previews. So, all right, guys.
Part 2 should be out within 24 to 48 hours of part 1.
Yep. All right, guys.
And part 2, just so you know, that will be our game preview. So make sure you tune into that one. I think you're all going to enjoy it.
Yep. Cool. Well, that's it. We'll see you on the next episode. Bye.